She's been an iconic woman for literally decades, but how much has your favorite doll changed over the years? We are taking a look at the ever-evolving worlds and looks of America's fictional sweetheart, Barbie. Before our Barbie history lesson, don't forget to subscribe to the taco. Now, listen up as we explore the evolution of the Barbie doll from the 1950s to today. 1950s. 1959 was the year that Barbie finally graced the world with her presence. She was created by Ruth and Elliot Handler, who also happened to be the founders of Mattel. Did you know that Barbie actually has a full name? It's Barbara Millicent Roberts. Seems like quite a mouthful for the young ladies the doll is marketed towards. No wonder they settled with Barbie for short. Another thing you probably didn't know about the first Barbie is that she was modeled after a popular German doll called Lily. While traveling abroad, the founders of Mattel spotted the doll in Switzerland and brought her home for their daughter. Later, she would serve as inspiration, along with Hollywood legends like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, for the first Barbie. After the Handlers bought the rights to Lily and she went through a few makeovers, she finally premiered at the American International Toy Fair. One of the interesting characteristics of the first generation of this iconic doll is the fact that her eyes don't look straightforward. She also had very fair skin and her hair was tied back, a far cry from the Barbie we all know and love today, but we will get to that transition later. Unsurprisingly, in the beginning, consumers weren't sure about Barbie. Many thought she was too mature looking for young girls, but her $3 price tag made her more affordable compared to other dolls with chic accessories and style. While she has held many careers over the years, Barbie's initial job was a teenage model. She showed off her model-esque physique by wearing a black and white swimsuit and black heels with gold hoop earrings, bringing her look together. Thankfully, as the years passed, Barbie became more accessible, and we will show you just how much she's changed. 1960s. Considering she only spent 1 year in the 50s, Barbie really started to show what she was made of in the 60s. Not much changed from 1959 to 1960. Barbie still rocked her signature ponytail and came in either blonde or brunette. Then in 1961, a new look came to town when she debuted a bubble cut hairstyle. At the time, Jackie O was the style icon, so of course Barbie took some inspiration from her. The ponytail Barbie was still sold alongside bubble cut Barbie, and their faces changed simultaneously throughout the years. Their eyes still gazed to the side and their lips became lighter, as well as their eyebrows, which became softer. Their bodies didn't really change, but as the years went, their hair became more full. This might have something to do with the fact that Barbie met and fell in love with Ken in 1961. The pair even moved into Barbie's dream house together in 1962, thus beginning their decades-long relationship. In the same decade, Barbie started making friends, including her lifelong pal Midge and little sister Skipper. Mattel even introduced the first African-American friend, Colored Francie, whose name probably wouldn't go over so well in modern times. Then in 1967, Barbie got a full makeover to go along with the mod era of the times. Her hair became sleek and straight, and her eyes became more round and featured rooted eyelashes. This was the standard look for the iconic doll until the end of the decade, with many variations like TNT, Twist and Turn, and Talking Barbie for consumers with larger pocketbooks. The first controversy also appeared in the 60s when Babysitting Barbie debuted. She came with all sorts of accessories like a phone, a baby crib, and an interesting book titled How to Lose Weight. The only page in the book read, "Don't eat." You can imagine how well that went over. 1970s. Now it's time to swing into the 70s Barbie style. You may not have been there, but older folks will remember the counterculture of the late 60s, early 70s. There were anti-war protests, and the notion of loving your neighbor and world peace was huge. This was also known as hippie culture, and it was actually embraced by Mattel. 1970s Barbie's hair became longer, and her miniskirts from the 60s were replaced with long flowing maxi skirts. This, however, didn't last very long. By 1971, Barbie went through another major transformation when one of the most iconic Barbies was created, Malibu Barbie. This new doll was the American surfer girl dream. Her long flowing blonde hair was accompanied by a new sun-kissed glow. Mattel also got rid of Barbie's iconic eyeliner, opting for a more natural look and painted on lashes. Another massive change that was welcomed by the feminist movement was the fact that Barbie's baby blue finally had a forward gaze. And something else that had never been featured on a Barbie before 1971, a toothy grin. That's right. right, 1971 was the first year we saw Barbie's teeth, but by 1972 it was gone again. It did, however, make another resurrection in 1976, never to go back to the traditional smirk ever again. Barbie also had a few highlighting career changes in the 70s. She became a Winter Olympics hero when she won gold medals for downhill skiing and figure skating. Who knew she was such an athlete? She was a surgeon and a flight attendant in 1973. In 1974 and 1979, she won Miss America, which is unheard of considering you aren't allowed to win the title twice. But Barbie can pretty much do whatever she wants, including being a ballerina in 1976 and an actress in 1977. 1980s. Just like in years before, Barbie changed her look to go with what was in style. If we remember anything from the 80s, it's that it was a decade full of colors and bizarre fashion trends. So of course, Barbie had a decade's worth of fashion faux pas that at the time were all the rage. Her hair got bigger and so did her experimentation with makeup. Just take a look at that amazing blue eyeshadow. In 1981, she rocked this amazing curled bob that was full of volume, which reminds us a little bit of the Jackie O bubble cut Barbie. Then in 1983, she was all glammed out with this iridescent getup. We could totally imagine going gaga over this shimmering Barbie, but we can't help but wonder if this wardrobe choice would be a little bit embarrassing for Barbie in hindsight. Just look at that tulle shawl. Yikes. One of the most exciting changes came with the African-American Barbie. We saw the first one introduced in the 60s, but she was actually made from the same mold as the Caucasian Barbie. We all know that not every figure is the same, and by the 80s, African-American Barbies had their own mold. Did we mention that the first African-American Barbie rocked natural hair? They also started getting amazing careers, like the 1985 version, which was an astronaut. This was also the first decade that the Hispanic Barbie doll hit the scene, making the iconic doll more accessible for girls with dark hair and eyes. And since the 80s were all about jazzercise and aerobics classes, it's only fitting that Barbie would jump in on the action. 80s babies will never forget the ever so popular Great Shape Barbie, complete with leg warmers and a leotard, of course. 1990s. When it came to the 90s and Barbie, this was the decade Mattel totally knocked it out of the park. They were able to keep up with the trends and knew exactly what every Barbie girl wanted. So much so that the best-selling Barbie of all time was released in this decade. Think you know what it is? Keep watching to see. Some of the major changes we started to see in the 90s was that Barbie became even more diverse, but that didn't keep the original blonde hair, blue-eyed beauty from being the top seller. Barbie's hair got longer, but she kept her tiny waist, larger chest, and toothy grin. And because people still love their blue eyeshadow and pink lipstick, Barbie followed in line with the questionable pairing. She was also super busy as far as her careers went in the 90s. Barbie did everything from rapping to delivering babies to jet-setting across the world as an airline stewardess. But the one Barbie who holds the title of #1 Barbie ever? Totally Hair Barbie, of course. 90s kids will remember this iconic doll for her 10.5 inches of crimped hair. Other notable dolls from the decade include Bath Blast Barbie, which came with a bottle of foam for you to create a new wardrobe for your doll, and Glitter Hair Barbie, because the 90s wouldn't be complete without glitter popping up somewhere, right? But by 1998, Barbie went through another big transformation. This time it was to her body. Her chest got smaller, her waist got bigger, and her signature pointed toes were flattened out so she could fit into everyone's staple footwear, Doc Martens. Of course, Mattel did have a couple of missteps in the 90s as well. One being the talking Barbie that perpetuated gender stereotypes by saying things like, "Math is hard" and "I love shopping." 2000s. With the new millennium came all the new Barbies. Just like we started to see at the end of the 90s, she started getting more and more real. Her makeup softened and she finally ditched the blue eyeshadow. And you know what she gained instead? For the first time in the doll's 50-year history, Barbie got a belly button. Groundbreaking, we know. And to go along with her more lifelike features, her chest got even smaller and her hips started to widen and her bum got larger. Sadly, there were still some standards set by the doll that were considered unachievable. While her chest was smaller, her breasts were higher on her chest, and her waist was larger, but her rib cage was smaller. Other changes in this decade came with Barbie's lifestyle. In the past, she had cars and homes and accessories that went with her career, but in the 2000s, Barbie was all about having fun. Her dream house got larger, you could add a karaoke machine to it, and and she even got her own fantasy princess horse-drawn carriage. And considering Barbie was celebrating her 50th anniversary, Mattel pulled out all the stops. She got a brand new Malibu dream house, which featured a celebrity guest and a fashion show. Who knew Barbie's plethora of careers were so lucrative that she could afford such an expensive party? Oh, and another bombshell from the 2000s, Barbie became single. After decades of being together, Mattel claimed that Barbie and Ken had grown apart, and the two separated in 2004. Now, what kind of message does that send? Even two fictional characters that were literally made for each other couldn't work it out? What does that say about relationships in the real world? On the other hand, we totally dig a smart, independent woman. Today. Starting in 2010, Mattel really started to up their game once again. They totally nailed their 2010 Barbie with the pulled-back bangs, modern makeup, and pink bandage dress. They also came out with a line specifically for adult collectors, the Barbie Basics line. Though the dolls weren't articulated, they were stunning. There was a range of 12 different dolls with different facial structures, hair, ethnicities, and heights. One thing was for sure, they were all gorgeous. But the major headlines came from the introduction of the average Barbie in 2013. Okay, Mattel wasn't actually behind this change, it was an artist that showed the world the difference between Barbie and the average 19-year-old American girl. Her neck was shortened along with her legs in height, and her waist was larger, and so were her legs. This must have been the light of inspiration for Mattel because it didn't take long for them to fall in line. In 2016, Mattel dropped their line of Barbies that featured 3 new body types as well as the classic slender one. They also had a hashtag to go along with the changes. The doll evolves. The new Barbie body types included curvy, petite, and tall. She also came with 22 new eye colors and 33 new hairstyles, making her almost universally inclusive. We think it's so important that little girls have the option to play with dolls that look like them. This was a fantastic move by Mattel, who in the past wasn't always up with the times. Now that the world is becoming more inclusive, it is important for brands who want to stay relevant to also adopt this mindset. And nothing confirms this more than the fact after a few years of declining numbers, when Mattel embraced all different types of women, they became profitable once again. Which decade of Barbies do you prefer? Tell us what you think in the comment section below, and don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching!